Hello, and welcome to How I Fixed It, a podcast where we cut the noise and learn step-for-step strategies entrepreneurs use to grow. My name is Emily, and today I'm excited to be joined by Julie Cole, one of the co-founders of Mabel's Labels.
Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. My name is Julie Cole. I'm the co-founder of Mabel's Labels. I'm a parenting blogger and I'm a mom of 6. I started Mabel's Labels about, 18 years ago now. Emily, you were probably one of my first customers. And basically, I started with 3 other women. And we started this company for a couple of reasons. I always tell people when they're about to start something, they should know why the heck they're going to do it. And I had 2 whys. The first why was there was a product missing from the market. I had small children and my co-founders had small children. And we were using like permanent marker and masking tape and putting that on bottles and sippy cups and Tupperware and those sorts of things. And we just thought we could do better than that. We thought there'd be a product out there, a great labeling product. And there wasn't. So we wanted to create a dishwasher microwave safe label for all the stuff kids lose. So that was the first reason, that being the product missing from the market. The second reason, at that time, my eldest child had just turned 3 and he was diagnosed with autism. And I didn't think that the traditional workforce was going to be super effective for my family at that point, because I really wanted to be able to set up a really great therapy program for him, be a strong advocate. And although he had only just turned 3, he already had 2 younger sisters. So it was a busy household anyway. And I always joke about how I'm a recovered lawyer. And I just didn't think that lifestyle was going to suit my family's changing needs. So at that point, I said to my co-founders, guys, you know what? We've had this great idea. I need to make a shift in my life. What do we say? Should we launch this label company? And we did, and we never looked back. And that's 18 years ago.
I like that. I've been using your labels for a very long time. So in first grade, I had a lunchbox. We put a label on it. It was one of your labels, and it's been on there ever since. And I can't say that I necessarily was super careful with the lunchbox. It's been walls. It's
you know what? They are durable. They are durable. We make that promise to our customers. And I can tell you, and that was the thing too, Emily, we really knew our market of moms. We knew that they wanted something super durable, but they also wanted something cute and personalized. So, little Emily could go on there and say, oh, I want the princess, or I want the cowboy, or I want the cow, or whatever. You could pick a little icon that spoke to you, pick a color palette, and have it highly personalized. So it was really fun to do something personalized, but it also worked. And that was our brand promise, and it does. Like you said, you were knocking that lunchbox around. You weren't particularly careful. And I know, I've got my 6 children who are all little product testers. And I, for fun, put one, my eldest son is named Mac. And I had in his first little pair of soccer cleats, I had Mac shoe labels. And then I put them on my daughter Posey, and then on another kid and another kid. It's gone through all 6 kids, and those shoe labels are still there. And you know what? Shoes are stinky, sweaty places. So yeah. We can really stand by these products. And then, of course, as the years passed, we started with just this one, we called it our sticky label, which was the dishwasher microwave safe label. But then, we got into the shoe labels and the clothing labels, originally an iron-on, but now peel and stick for the tags. And we actually just launched last year a name stamp. So you can actually stamp directly on the clothing, which parents, of course, love. And you know what? We moms are busy. We don't have time to be doing things like sewing labels into things. And so the peel and stick's been really handy. And then also, we've gotten into, a lot of medical labels and allergy alerts. And so we have quite a few products, and then combination packs. So hey, my kid's going to day camp. You just go to mabelslabels.com, look at the day camp, be like, yeah, that should do me, or overnight camp. Or kindergarten pack or blah, blah, like we have all these different ones, like a newborn pack. So when we try to take the guesswork out and give a little bit of variety with our combo packs.
Yeah. I did want to talk about the origin of Mabel's Labels a little bit more. And one of the things that's been on my mind a bit is why Mabel?
That's a really good question. And I get asked it a lot. And it's not a very exciting answer, I'm afraid. So we ended up calling it Mabel's Labels for a couple of reasons. It was because of the branding. And we wanted to have this like feisty, personified brand. And, our little girl, Mabel, she's fun and innovative and feisty and just like us. And that's what we wanted the brand to represent. And quite honestly, like Mabel's Labels, it's catchy. We wanted something people would remember, and it rhymed and it worked. So that's how we ended up coming up with the name Mabel's Labels, but it's really not that exciting. I've got actually a story I've kind of made up that I would like to start saying is the real one. And it's that when I was a kid, I had a cat named Mabel, and it would take off into the neighborhood for days, but it would always come home, just like your labeled things will. If it has a Mabel's Labels on it, it might disappear, but it's always going to find its way home. But the truth is, I never had a cat named Mabel. But isn't it a good story?
It is a good story, yeah. You could always
say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so that was how we got the name, and it did really work, and we have been very fierce about our brand ever since. Like we stick with our brand promise. We've created a wonderful community. We have over 200,000 Facebook fans. I've been blogging for 15 years, so I don't blog about labels. I blog about being a mom with 6 kids, running a business, having a child with autism, having a queer child, like all of the things. Like we're just very transparent. We're very open. And that's because, that's what's fun about our business is the community, right? Like I've met your mom at blogging conferences, and, I love connecting with influencers and bloggers and moms and just being a part of this really wonderful community.
I would say that one of the most important things, so I'm not a marketer, but I do think it's important that businesses reach out and connect with their audience. And I think that's very important that you share those stories and tell people that you understand what it's like to be a mom and what it's like to raise children.
Emily, you're absolutely right. I mean, you may not be a marketer, but you've got that 100% right. And that's because, like, particularly with the mom market, like moms don't want to buy from nameless, faceless brands. They want to feel connected to the brands. So that's why I think it is important for, CEOs. It's kind of like that notion of the celebrity CEO. You've got to come out from behind and be visible, because if you're visible, you're credible. And if you're credible, people buy from you. So it's good for your bottom line as well. So you're absolutely right. There's got to be something personal. And I know the mom market really insists upon it. They want to see their brands kind of out there, and they want to feel a part of the community. And that's why creating the Mabelhood and that online community was such an important thing for us to do.
Definitely. Yeah. Were there any challenges with creating this amazing community that you have?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, I'll talk a little bit about the challenges of starting the business. And I mean, I'll talk about 2. I mean, obviously there are hundreds of challenges when you're starting business. Actually, I'm going to say I'm probably just going to keep going because there's lots. I think one thing, for anybody listening who's an entrepreneur or thinking about starting a company, I think it gets romanticized. I think people romanticize the idea of being an entrepreneur. And, you think, oh, it's going to be flexible, or I can go to the park with my kids. And yes, there is some flexibility involved, but I always say flexibility doesn't get your work done for you. So yes, I could go to the park with my kids in the afternoon, but I was on my laptop at midnight. So, there is this notion that it's this really, I just say it's romanticized, because at the end of the day, I was in a basement making labels for years before I got myself a paycheck. So there was nothing glamorous about putting a bunch of kids to bed, going into a basement, running machines, and then, licking stamps and getting them all out in the mail and getting up at 6 a.m. and doing the whole thing again. It was a lot of hard work. So
yes.
would say that is one of the early challenges, that you leave your paying job and you don't get holidays, you don't have date night, you don't do anything, you just do your side hustle, right? Until the moment that you can give it up. So that certainly is a challenge. I think for us to having 4 partners, so that's a big group, right? Like a big partner group. There were advantages and disadvantages. The advantage, for sure, it contributed to our early growth. We had 4 really, smart, different brains coming to the table, and we had different careers. I came from law, one came from finance, one came from graphics, and one was a teacher. So we had all these different skills and talents, and also allowed us to divide and conquer. I could worry about getting out press releases while somebody could do product research and material research, and one person could go deal with the bank. So I really feel for my solo entrepreneur friends, because they have to do it all themselves. They can't assign things out to other people. So I think that was really helpful. But along with having 4 very different bright brains at the table, you have 4 very bright opinionated brains at the table. So, we did have lots of feisty conversations around that boardroom table. But we just had to keep working on our communication skills, figure out how each other best communicates and how information lands and how they process information. And when we got it wrong, we just said, okay, we're practicing, we'll get it better next time. And we had to be careful because we're all related, because one's my sister and 2 were friends from university, and one married my brother and one married my young uncle. So we wanted, we had to be able to make sure we could leave the boardroom table and say, are you bringing the potatoes to Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow?
Right. Yeah.
So I think, the big partnership was definitely a challenge. I think the third challenge I'll mention, which actually didn't end up being such a big issue, but was that we were bringing a new product to the market. So often when you do this, you need to actually educate your market that they need your product.
Right. Yeah.
So the thing was for us where we were lucky, at first I remember doing a baby show and a dad being like, oh, I can just print some labels off my computer. And I'm like, yeah, you go and try that. You go try that, smart guy. You'll be back here. Because you can't not durable dishwasher microwave safe labels like we were making. We knew you couldn't do that. We did product testing for, years. So there was that, having to teach the market that they needed us. The thing was, though, Emily, this was the interesting thing. Once people saw the product out there, out in the wild, they were like, where did you get those? And, moms, we talk about products we love like it's our full-time job. And
word of mouth.
You call it word of mouth, I call it word of mom. The moms, it's like the old she told 2 friends and she told 2 friends and she told 2 friends. So it was funny because whenever we'd get a media hit, we'd see a spike in sales. And then it would go quiet. And then 2 weeks later, we'd get a second spike. And that was when all the labels from the first spike were out there in the wild and in the daycares and in the schools, and people would be like, where did you get that? So we always had a slightly smaller second spike after the first spike. And that was the word of mouth and seeing the label. So once people saw them and it was just a product that made sense, and moms, love really practical products. So it really spoke to moms. So it is always a challenge when you're bringing something new to the market, but we certainly had the advantage of it just made a lot of sense.
Yeah. When you were talking about making labels in your basement. So how did you go about doing that? How did you research the materials,
right?
How to make it, and then be able to streamline that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Emily. So we did a lot of research. We did a lot of, and it's funny, and with the machinery that we used originally, and the material that we used was used for an entirely different purpose to what we're using it for. So we got very creative and we tried different things. We did a lot of testing on different equipment. We were driving all over, and eventually the machinery that we were using and the product that we were using to make the labels, it had the durability and the stick that we wanted. So that's what we went with. And And it's quite funny because the guy who we got the equipment from, like leased it from originally and was getting the material from, he used to talk about I got these 4 moms in a basement making labels with this stuff. And eventually we're like, stop telling people, non-disclosure agreement, please, because it was just used for something entirely different. And I tell you what it was, but I won't, because that's intellectual property. Big classified information, big secrets. Yeah. So that's what it was. It was just a lot of research and a lot of testing.
How many different places do you think you went to during that entire process? And what would you say to someone who maybe is getting discouraged by the amount of time that it's taking to get something?
Yeah. Look, I'm going to say, for somebody who's feeling discouraged right now, your days are better than they were back in the old days. Like when we were doing this stuff, there was not like a Facebook group for entrepreneurs where you could say, hey, does anybody know where I can source this? Or does anybody know a trademark lawyer? Does anybody, like, right now is such a great time. You have access to amazing resources. We literally were like going through the yellow pages of phone books and like looking things up. And even the internet wasn't fabulous like then, So we did do a lot of driving around. We drove to Montreal. We drove to Toronto. We were driving around and checking these and going to like print shows and things like that. So I get if you're getting discouraged, especially as a solopreneur, because you're going to be, you're going to have obstacles along the way. But really, I always say your network is your net worth. So make sure you're listening to podcasts like Emily's and learning from other entrepreneurs who have done it before, and join groups because sometimes also when you're all on your own, if you're feeling down and deflated and defeated, like at least for me, I had other partners who'd be like, we got this, Julie. I know you're having a bad day, but we can do this. We could build each other up when one of us was, feeling down. And I think the solopreneur journey can be a very lonely one. So please, my best advice is your network is your net worth, and make sure that you're tapping in, you get a mentor, you're in like a peer group, and you're connecting all the time. Definitely. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I was in I guess they would call it a human accelerator program called TKS. And they said that a lot too. Your network is your net worth. And that's a very important saying, I think, to ingrain into you. You don't always have to do it by yourself. You can find someone else who knows how to do what you need to do and have them maybe teach you or show you the beginnings of how to start doing that thing.
I totally agree. I mean, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Like, you can go and find templates to things. Like, if you're doing a shareholders agreement, you can find a template online now. If you're doing a business plan, if you're doing anything like that. And I know for me, I have a group, there's 6 of us, and it's like peer mentors. They're all my age. We're all kind of do the same stuff, and we provide great support for each other. And we're very sharing. We share all our media contacts. We share if we've done a pitch deck that somebody else might find helpful. Like, I'll share my press page with anyone if they're like, oh, I'm trying to do a press page, I don't know. I'm like, use mine. Here's mine. Obviously make it yours, but use this template. So, women do want to, raise each other up. That has been my experience. That has very much been my experience, and it's a wonderful community to be a part of.
Speaking of networks, you met 2 of your co-founders at the University of Waterloo, correct?
Correct.
You're in completely different departments. How did you meet up?
Right. Okay. So one of the partners was my sister. So of course I met her when I was 18 months old and she was born. And then the other 2 were, okay. So one of them, I was actually her dawn in residence. So that's like an RA. So I managed a residence hall with a bunch of we call them freshmen. And I was in 3rd year, she was in 1st year. So we met that way. And then we ended up just becoming great friends. And then the other one, was also a Dawn. We were both Dawns or RAs together. So we had met that way. And then we all just, as the years went on, just became great friends. And then, so like we would have like parties, and my brother would come up and party with us. And he met my friend, Julie Ellis, and then they hit it off and they got married. And then my other friend ended up, my uncle, I have a young uncle. He's only a couple of years older than me. And he's more like a sibling, and would come and party with my friends, and he met my other friend and married her. So there we go. Big family affair now. Yeah.
Awesome. Very close, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but it all takes work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're going to university, maybe don't just stick with clubs that are directly related to your major, and branch out a little bit to meet new people.
Emily, I think that is a really important thing to say, because I think like for me, I was always that kid, who did all the things. So, I was a Dawn, and I ran the student government, and I did all the things. And in all of those organizations and all those clubs and all those little interests, I met so many neat and diverse people. And that's what makes the world exciting. Like if I was always just hanging out with the people in my program, it's important to get out there. And I know sometimes that's like, that was kind of easy for me. I am an extrovert. I get that. That's okay. There's all sorts of different kinds of leadership. I know some of the best leaders I know are introverts. Like, don't think that you have to be a certain way. There's no perfect way to lead. But I will say, like, my friends who own businesses, and they're like, oh, I just don't like getting out there. And I'm like, I know, but, I think it is important to be visible. Like to our point earlier, Emily, like it is important to be visible. So, I think we all need to challenge ourselves in some ways. I often say, hey, tell yourself you're going to go to one networking event a month, or you're going to do one meetup a month. Do challenge yourself to do a little something, or say, oh, I'm going to ask somebody if I can be a guest on their podcast, even if it makes you uncomfortable, because you know what? I always say this entrepreneurship game is all about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. I've heard that many times before.
Yeah.
You're not going to grow unless you find a way to make yourself uncomfortable. And if you're always staying in your same little bubble and you want to get out there, you have it just doesn't promote growth, right? So, and you know what, that's the fun part too. I mean, I remember thinking at Mabel's, we're at this point now we know what we're doing, and then we'd experience growth, and we're like, okay, now we're going to learn new stuff and expand and that sort of thing. But that's the sport of entrepreneurship too, right? If we just stayed the same, and all get a little bit boring. It's the innovation and change that makes it a real bit of fun. Definitely. Yeah. One of the last questions that I wanted to ask is, I guess before that, I do want to ask, when you're transitioning from being a small business to a larger business, there's this awkward gap in between.
Right.
How did you traverse that?
Okay. Yeah. So, you know what? It was, I think what we had, there's a couple of things. So when you're starting out, like we were doing everything, right? Like we were doing all of it. And it can be a bit of a challenge when you grow. Like our first bit of growth, we hired the worker bees. So that was great. We could hire people to make the labels and work in the warehouse and do that sort of thing. I found the challenge for us, and I think a lot of small business and owners and entrepreneurs feel this way, because we all are a little bit control freaks, because our businesses are also like our babies, and we think we're the one who knows it best, and we're the experts. The problem is, eventually you got to hire managers, and you have to let them manage. You can't micromanage them. You have to let them work their teams. You got to let them be leaders, because if you micromanage them, they will quit, or they will not be innovative, or you will put them on eggshells. And that is not good for your business. So, you know what, business owners, you need to step away. You need to let people have a say. You have to let them innovate. You have to listen to their ideas and give it proper airtime, because that is good for your business. And if you're still running around putting out all the little bushfires in the warehouse every day, then you're working in the business and not on the business. And the only way your business is going to grow is if you're working on it. So you hire people to work in it so that you can take that, bird's eye view and really concentrate on growth, strategy, and that sort of thing. So I think that can be a bit of a like you say, it's an awkward transition because it means we have to give up some of the power and give up the reins to other people. And sometimes we're not comfortable doing that, but we have to be. You have to practice and you have to get better at it. And you will not have a happy team. You will not have a happy culture. And that is bad for business.
How do you cultivate a happy and innovative culture within your company? That's something that I think that's a great question because it's something that we're absolutely passionate about. I think the one is about not micromanaging, to my point. I think great leaders create more leaders. We don't hire people I don't hire people who are going to follow me around and tell me how great I am. I hire people who are smarter than I am, who have skills that I don't have. I always say if I'm the smartest person in the room, I got to find a new room. I want people like that who are challenging themselves, challenging us. You have to give them time to innovate. So, with our IT team, we try to make sure we carve out time a couple days a month where they just get to play and they just get to innovate and they just got to get to, because then they're more entrepreneurial. And if people are entrepreneurial in their job, they have skin in the game and they feel good and they want to succeed and they want to see the company succeed. And that's great for your bottom line and it's great for your culture. I also, we're very committed to our core values. We have created, a list of core values and we hire and fire by them. And we hire people, we integrate it into interview questions so that we know what kind of people we're hiring. And because, I could train anyone to make labels, but can I train them to be a team player? We do stuff, of course, but our core values are really, really important. And they focus all around like a lot of things like inclusivity, diversity, being innovative, being the best, like making our customers, wowing our customers, like all of these things that are just part of the Mabel's Labels brand. And really, our core values aren't just hanging on a wall somewhere. We really integrate it into everything we do at Mabel's Labels and every decision we make. Would you say that attitude is more important than hard skills, like knowing how to make a label?
Yeah. You know what? It really is, like, honestly, because people always say to me, Julie, how did you do it? You got those 6 kids when, you went through the autism stuff with him and you guys built a business. And I will tell you, my secret sauce is my attitude. Honestly, I don't take myself too seriously. My kids are okay. The business is good. I just don't get myself too worried about things. I try not to care what people think. Like if you come to my house and it's a mess, I'll be like, yes, of course it's a mess. I have 6 kids. I'm okay with that, So I think the secret sauce is around that. And I also really try hard not to complain. I'm not a complainer, mostly because I don't want to hear my kids complain. And I always think this parenting gig is all about the role modeling. Definitely. And I also just find complaining not helpful. Like I've never said I'm tired and a bed appears and says, have a nap on me, So if I'm tired, I have to make changes. Or, if I feel like I'm spending too much time in the office, well, I'm the author of this book, I need to shift things around. That's on me to do better prioritizing. So, you know what? That's attitude is going to do it for you, and like I said, we can teach, we can train in a lot of things. But it is your attitude. I see with my kids, the attitude that's going to get them far.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Does it ever get hard balancing the work-life balance, especially with 6 kids like that?
For sure it does. Yeah, for sure. It comes with challenges. But like I said, I feel like I do it okay. And a lot of the time it's because I keep my standards pretty low. Like if the kids have hot dogs for dinner 2 nights in a row, I certainly don't beat myself up for it. If they end up having to be on their screens a little longer than I would have liked because I have a deadline, again, I gave up mom guilt 4 kids ago. Like it's no big deal, especially through COVID and everything. These are not optimal times. Everybody's doing the best, and feeling guilty isn't a proactive or helpful feeling. So, you know what, if we have to suck it up and like I say, have craft dinner, so be it. Or do takeout a little more often than I like. That's okay. That's all right. We'll go through it. Things will get back to normal again. And just not carrying the guilt is so freeing, because, a lot of moms talk about mom guilt and it weighs you down and it's useless. So I would hope that anyone listening, just please, if you're feeling guilty and you're feeling torn all the time, make changes and try to free yourself of that, because it's not helpful.
I think that's a very important message to get out there. It's not always on the mom to do work in the house. Other family members can take on some of that as well.
Absolutely. You know it. That's right. And, I that is so true. Like, families everybody's got to pitch in. It's a community in and of itself. So yeah, it doesn't just follow mom. The unfortunate thing is that we know through research, we know through studies, we know that women are still carrying the load, the emotional load, the physical load of parenthood, and homes will get more democratic as time goes by. But right now, women are still carrying a lot of the load in the house, and we need to make sure that we're, making sure our families are pulling their weight. It's not all on us.
Definitely. So my last little question for you is, if there's one thing that you would do, like if you had to restart your business all over again, what's something that you would change about it?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I would do anything extremely different. I always say there are no mistakes, only lessons. And we certainly learned a lot of lessons and grown through that and made changes. I think at first, when we would have equipment fails or, problems like the service guy couldn't come around and we're trying to get the labels out the door, I remember thinking it would be kind of cool if I just had something on a shelf that I could put in, like, somebody orders it and I just pull it off a shelf. But because we're so highly personalized, it meant, we can't fulfill our order like by just pulling something off the shelf. Now, I used to say that, but now I actually realize something very cool about our company. And that is, like, a lot of companies that do have stuff on the shelves have a lot of money tied up in inventory. I don't, because I buy the material. The person buys their labels before we make it. And we know our sales cycles now. We know camp season, what it's going to look like. We know what back to school season is going to look like. We know our cycle. So we can figure out how much material we're going to need to make the labels over the next little while, which means our money isn't all tied up in inventory. And that's pretty cool from a finance perspective.
That's definitely very cool. I like that. I remember whenever you go into a gift shop, there's always these cups that have people's names on it. But only so many people get a cup. My one friend, her name's Alice, never got a cup because there's not a lot of people named Alice.
Well, you make a good point. I can tell you, parents with children who have like less common names love Mabel's labels because their kids they can finally see their names in print, right?
That's very important, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time to be here with us today. I've learned a lot about you and your company, and I really enjoyed hearing your story.
Oh, Emily, thank you so much for having me. That was really a great conversation. You asked great questions, and I'm so glad we were able to connect.
Yay!